Reporters in New York. Day 2 of former President Trump's second impeachment trial is just getting underway right this minute. We're going to take you there momentarily, but first we want to check in with Bloomberg Opinion's Tim O'Brien and Bloomberg Senate reporter Stephen Dennis just to talk a little bit about what to expect today. So Stephen and Tim, thanks so much for being here. Stephen, I want to start with you. What exactly are we expecting today? We're hearing about some new video evidence that might be shown during the trial today.
Right. So they had access to the internal cameras of the Capitol. So we're told that we're going to see new footage of these security cameras showing just how brutal this attack was. And we've certainly seen plenty of brutal video already, including the shooting of a protester yesterday and the beating up of police officers. We're likely to see a lot more of that. But I think one of the things that the lawyers, the 9 House impeachment managers are going to be presenting is a longer case, something that doesn't start on January 6th, but actually starts months before then, when President Trump started talking about how the election would be stolen from him, and then after the election saying that it was stolen from him, and continuing to spread misinformation and whipping up a crowd to show up on January 6th. So I think that's something that they're going to sort of build bit by bit to lead to that violent storming of the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah, Tim O'Brien, come on in here. Given the evidence that we saw yesterday, given the potential evidence that Stephen says that we will likely see today and what has been reported. And then in addition to that, what we learned late last night about Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who reportedly is undecided about convicting the former president, Is there any chance that President Trump actually gets convicted?
I think it's highly unlikely. I think the vote you saw yesterday, 44 Republican senators said the entire proceeding, wasn't. They essentially broke with the Constitution to say the impeachment trial itself was baseless. I think it would be the Democrats would be very hard pressed to get. They'd need at least 7 more. 12 more actually. Republican senators to come over during the course of this trial. I don't see that happening, but I think that was a foregone conclusion when it started. I think one of the useful exercises in this trial is just to fill in the historical record, put the fact pattern before senators, citizens, and the American voters about what occurred here. And I think it's very useful that they're digging into a pre-January 6th scenario. We know, as Steve pointed out, Trump was inveighing against the legitimacy of the election months before November 3rd. Weeks before January 6th, he was inviting people to attend the rally, which became a siege on January 6th. He reached into the Justice Department and tried to convince officials there to help him overturn the election. He was making phone calls to Georgia. As we know, prosecutors in Georgia are now looking into those phone calls independently of the Senate trial. It would be useful, I think, if there were subpoenas of the presidential campaign and the White House about communications that occurred around this event prior to January 6th, but I don't see that coming. It doesn't appear they're going to have witnesses. So there may be a lot of missing pieces to the evidentiary pattern and the historical record here that I think would be unfortunate. But if they fill in more of it, that's a very important and useful exercise.
So, Tim, you mentioned Georgia prosecutors probing former President Trump's efforts to influence the election in that state. Is that a bigger risk to former President Trump than this impeachment trial?
Well, legally, I think it is. It's a federal crime to try to interfere with an election, and it's at the state level. It's a crime too. So he's exposed to charges in Georgia in the same way that he's exposed to charges in New York through the New York Attorney General's office and the Manhattan District Attorney's office for actions that are going to continue well after this trial. And I think that those have been very front of mind for him. I think one of the reasons he claimed that the election was rigged was because he was very wary of losing the legal and institutional insulation that the presidency provided him, especially against actions like this that are independent of the federal machinery.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Bloomberg's Tim O'Brien and Stephen Dennis, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time. All right, we're going to take you to the impeachment trial. It's officially underway. Let's listen in to opening
of the
arguments.
Presidential oath in the history of the United States. The evidence will show you that he saw it coming and was not remotely surprised by the violence. And when the violence inexorably and inevitably came as predicted and overran this body and the House of Representatives with chaos, we will show you that he completely abdicated his duty as Commander-in-Chief to stop the violence and protect the government and protect our officers and protect our people. He violated his oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, the government, and the people of the United States. The evidence will show you that he assembled, inflamed, and incited his followers to descend upon the Capitol to stop the steal, to block Vice President Pence and Congress from finalizing his opponent's election victory over him. It will show that he had been warned that these followers were prepared for a violent attack, targeting us at the Capitol through media reports, law enforcement reports, and even arrests.